This is Distant Replay. Last Chance U, it's on Netflix. Have you started it yet? If not, recommend it. We're rolling through each episode. We did the first episodes together, recap those in our previous week, but now we're focused episode by episode. We are on episode 3 today for this episode of Distant Replay Podcast. I don't think I can say episode anymore. Let's move into the show, Mike, because this is a good one. We're getting into the kind of the nuts and bolts a little bit. We're learning more about players. The question is, what's going on with Joe Hampton? We see him walk off the court last time. What's his plan? And we learn a lot more in this episode. So I'm ready to dive back into this one with you.
Yep, good episode here. Episode 3, we get a little bit of a peek under the hood at these guys from a personal life perspective. We get more in depth on Deshaun Highler and his mom, and the difference between guys who are 6'7" and up and guards, and how they play a role on this team, and the success or failure of this team, and how sort of they're treated differently from a basketball perspective as well as a whole. So very eye-opening on multiple fronts.
Well, let's start off with Joe Hampton. He's the headliner of this show so far. I love it because at the beginning, right out of the gates, we're kind of like, where is Joe? What's going on with Joe? Because we saw him basically walk out last game, just in the game before the game was even over, left the bench, went to the locker room, changed, and was like, I'm out. And we find out he's just been away for a couple days. Nobody's seen or heard from him. We don't know what his plan is. Is he coming back? What are we going to do with him? Then eventually he just kind of shows up. But I thought it was interesting. Coach Robinson, who we love, we've talked about it, love him and his kind of perspective. He says that Joe Hampton's one of the best team supporters. He backs his team up as much as anybody. And I'm thinking, has this show just been edited completely differently? Because we're seeing a completely different side of Joe, where every time something goes away, he's on the bench complaining about teammates, complaining about his coach. We rarely see him actually cheering for his teammates.
Yeah, first of all, Robinson, like you mentioned, along with Mosley, but on Robinson for a second, he's great on camera. He's great in this show. And again, interested to see if we learn more about him in the coming episodes. But yeah, there's either something going on with the editing, or Joe Hampton is not putting his best foot forward so far, because we're at the point here where he's just literally not showing up. So it's not that he's acting out when he's there. He is a multiple day absence from practice at this point. No one knows where he is. And like you said, he shows back up, and it kind of just seems like he just jumps right back in and right back to business as usual. It's just an odd situation.
Yeah, and Coach Mosley even talked about, I got to find that balance, right? At some point, is he going to be too much of a distraction for this team? We're still winning right now, still having success, but at some point, you might have to make that decision, or we're better off cutting bait and letting him go. And he knows in the back of his mind, I want to keep him on because I want to try to help him get to where he wants to go. But at some point, enough's enough.
Yeah, I mean, that's a balance that this Coach Mosley must have to balance every season, because he's going to have, maybe not to someone to the degree that's as talented and as much of a problem as Joe Hampton, but he's probably dealing with this every season to some degree. And it's probably good right now he has that experience and perspective dealing with Hampton. He meets with Joe Hampton, and despite all the stuff that's going on with Joe Hampton and all the stuff that's gone on with him in years past, there's still Big 10 and Big 12 teams interested in him. He still has everything in front of him to at very least get a Division I scholarship again. And it's really crazy, especially these big guys that are skilled like Joe Hampton, because make no mistake about it, he's very skilled. I still can't believe how many chances they get.
I know, over and over and over again.
I mean, can you think of any other industry where if you're extremely talented in the industry, below opportunities, that you get another one? I can't think of a comparable industry. There's no other sport like it.
Well, we'll find out how much of an opportunity he gets down the road. I mean, I think that's kind of one of the big storylines, is this guy has all the talent, but is he actually going to overcome kind of his inner demons and get into a good spot mentally where he can actually take advantage of maybe what's ahead of him? That's kind of what we want to see, and that's what we might find out a little bit more about. And we'll talk about the meeting he had with Coach when he gets back, and he has a couple of meetings during the show with Coach Mosley. I think we're kind of getting to a bit of a breaking point here. You got to go one way or the other for us. But the other focus of this show was Deshaun Highler, and we kind of get a little bit more background on him because we've heard about him a little bit, and we kind of know like his personality. He's doing a lot of stuff, lost his mom, doesn't have his dad either, and he's kind of on his own right now, and that's a big struggle for anyone, especially this age in college, this transitional period. But, it's been really tough for him. And, some of the question with some of the coaches that are looking at him is, hey, he didn't have that structure in his life. Is he going to be too much of a risk for us to take on? But we learned a lot about, his mom and kind of how that unfolded. And that, that's a pretty deep spot in this in a pretty heavy part of this documentary right now, is learning about how he found out, how his mom let him go on a trip, a basketball tournament, and she stayed home, had another reason for it. Then he later finds out she has cancer.
Yeah, that's the emotional part of this episode. Each of these episodes seems like they have one emotional storyline or part to it. And for me, it was this part for sure. Very just devastating story about Deshaun and his mom, how close they were, how he cared for her when she did get sick with cancer. Just that whole storyline. You start to just piece together why Deshaun is the way he is, why he takes basketball so seriously, why sometimes maybe he has an edge to him that the other players don't have. You begin to understand that more as you kind of learn his story. And I guess we'll get into a little bit now the role his current girlfriend plays in all this. But just from Deshaun and his mom, I mean, they even had one of his coaches from someone who's close to him from his youth talk about it. And you could just tell how close him and his mom were and how devastating this is for him.
Yeah, it's super tough, and that's why his girlfriend kind of plays such a pivotal role in his life now, and why even as one of his assistant coaches said, he's so loyal to her because that's basically who he has in his life now, and we see that relationship. They have a really good relationship. It seems like Deshaun seems like a really good, honest, respectable person, in terms of this relationship, which is also refreshing to see because as coach asked about how loyal, one of the assistants who was in the gym was asking like, how loyal is he? Is he like pretty loyal, or is he 100% loyal to his girlfriend? As you can imagine, some athletes get around and aren't always faithful to whoever their significant other is, and that was a big point of contention for this assistant asking about it. But it seems like by all accounts that this is a pretty serious relationship, and they have a true bond.
Yeah, from the they haven't been together too long, from what I was able to piece together by the timeline of everything, but they seem like they live together. And they seem very, very close and have a special bond. And I think that's something just based on all the information we have about Deshaun right now. And I think he even makes reference to this in the show. I think it's something he needs right now, and it's really good for him.
Yeah, it's great to see. And it's funny because, they're interviewing him in the car, is kind of tying him and Hampton together. And he's talking about, I think the producer or whoever's in the car asks, hey, do you expect Hampton to come back to practice? And he's like, I really have no idea. I mean, it could go either way, but he thought the interesting thing he said was, this guy's a 5-star player. Not he was a 5-star player. He is a 5-star player. He can go play anywhere if he can get back in the game. So I think that's kind of where we are right now, man. Is he going to come back? What does his future hold? I think it's what everybody's curious about with this season. But going into the guards, you touched on it. So Coach Robinson, who we love, we kind of see the first kind of look in the practice, the film room, discussions with positions, and he's got the guards in there. And I loved his honesty. He said the guards are the wink link of this team, right? KJ Allen, Joe Hampton, these guys aren't going to improve very much. They're kind of already maxing out potential. They're very good players. There's not a lot we can get out of them that they aren't doing already. So it's up to you guys. And he's like showing them stats. Hey, what stands out to you on your stat line right now? Oh, your free throws are down. Well, you're not mentally tough enough to be at the line. You're making your shots from the field and from three, but your percentage drops off the free throw line. You're just not mentally there. But I love this approach to it. And just the honesty he had with everybody.
Yeah, and notice, when he's talking, these players are listening.
Yeah.
So he's being very critical of them, and there's no pushback. There's no attitude. They respect him, you could tell. I would think that when other coaches see this show and see kind of the command he has in front of a room, I would think this is rare. Maybe all college coaches are like this. I'm not saying, I know all college coaches are probably critical of their players, but the way he comes across where it's like, you're doing this, it's not meeting the mark, how could we get better? He does it in a very professional way. And I just thought, like you said, this is one of the more eye-opening scenes. And what he's saying is right, by the way. If you even just watch the limited we're watching of the games here in this documentary so far, you see that backcourt is the weak link of the team. Not necessarily because they're really bad, but because that front court for junior college is just wildly talented.
Yeah, and part of the theme of this episode is guards have it tough anyway, right? There's so many guys that are under 6'5" or 6'3" that are trying to play basketball. There's not as many guys that have that height, so you have a little more flexibility to have down days, or you don't have to be quite as skilled. You don't have to be at the top 0.5% of your position because there's fewer of you, right? So you may have a little wiggle room there, but guards, it's such a tougher process. So all these guys that are fighting for a position like Highler to try to get to that next level, you really have to stand out more than anybody else because there's so many of you out there.
Yeah, and I mean, this team is a good microcosm of that. Joe Hampton's had like an off 3 years, it seems like, and he's still getting chance after chance. That Malik Muhammad, I mean, it's a storyline in this episode as well. He just, right now, he just is not in the correct headspace to know that he has to put in work to get better because he's so good, right? But he keeps on getting chance after chance. KJ Allen's kind of in a different kind of bucket to me because he's just not meeting the mark academically. But I don't think he takes his chances for granted that he has to play. But yeah, you even see it. It really rings true what they're talking about, the difference between big men and guards, because it's playing out with this team in the moment.
We also had a meeting between Joe and Coach Mosley in the office when he finally gets back to practice. Hey, where you been, Joe? What did you think about his excuse about where he had been missing practice?
He said, I loved it. He said, yeah, I had flu-like symptoms. I've never heard of someone referring to themselves as having flu-like symptoms. He was like Woj or Adam Schefter, like tweeting out an injury, but speaking to the coach in real time. It was great.
Like reading off injury report. So Joe Hampton has been out with flu-like symptoms the last couple of days.
It was funny, and not that you didn't believe. It's not like, all right, he didn't have the flu. Like, who knows? But not that you don't believe him. It's just the way he said it was funny.
And I also wonder too, like we're pre-COVID, like if he truly was sick, did he have a bout with COVID before all this? Who knows? But
is he going to be one of those guys? Oh man, we all know the guy who said, "Man, I think I had COVID in November last year. I think I had COVID in December." And you're just thinking in the back of your head, like, dude, no one cares.
You sound skeptical, bro.
Yeah, no, I'm not skeptical of COVID. Please, let's not start that. I'm just saying, it's just I think we all know a guy who said, "Oh, I think I had it." It's like, all right, thanks for the heads up, buddy.
So that was a good meeting. And look, it's kind of a, hey, I don't know how many of these face-to-face they can have before something gives, but, each one of these is kind of building towards that moment where coach has to make a decision. And, it sounds like Hampton's buying in. It's like, hey, we want you to get to that next level. We know you can, but you got to put in the work, and you can't respond negatively anytime anything happens that doesn't go your way. So are you going to respond? So we'll find out whether Joe can, but they had another game. The episode ends with a game against Los Angeles Trade Tech. Love the name. Again, it's one of those where, team looks like they're starting off slow. We kind of get that feel from the things, but then, they kind of pulled together. So kind of another win, another kind of step forward with everything in this program. Anything else from this episode, Mike, that you want to hit on?
I thought, we got to see Deshaun and his girlfriend. We also got to see some of the other personal relationships these guys have with their girlfriends. Yeah. And again, just another peek under the hood of them just being like normal college kids, I like that aspect of it. Kind of getting to know these guys off the basketball court, seeing what makes them tick, So I thought that was another just aspect of this episode. And as a whole, just looking forward to get a little bit more backstory on the coaches. Mosley, we know the general story of how he ended up at East LA, but what was he doing professionally before he got there? I'm interested in, and then more about Robinson also, and the other assistant coach as well. So
and probably player wise too, Malik Muhammad. I wonder if we'll get more of a look at him. He seems very quiet, so I don't know how much we're going to get out of him, but hearing his story would be interesting as well.
Yeah, maybe some of the other role players also.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll close it out on that note. Again, we'll be doing every episode every week. Episode 4 will be coming up next. So if you're following along, great. If you haven't started the documentary, go for it. I think it's very good, and it's a great kind of a different perspective moving away from football to basketball, so it's really good. But you can find us online at distantreplaypodcast.com, on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe, rate and review. That really helps us keep growing, and we appreciate all the feedback.
Yeah, and look, if you're watching this video right now, in the preview for the next video, you're going to see episodes 1 and 2. I'll link to them there. So be sure to check them out if you haven't.
Good deal. We'll talk to you next week.